The moment Chase told us to come to his house, I knew something was wrong. Not because of the way he said it. It was the way he looked at me. He wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't angry either. He looked afraid. "Come with me," Chase said quietly. "There's something you need to see." My wife immediately stepped closer to our daughter. I could feel her fingers tightening around mine. "Why should we trust you?" she asked. Chase glanced at her, then at our daughter. "You shouldn't." His answer made the room completely silent. I studied him carefully. 8 years ago, I had seen Chase as nothing more than the man who had appeared beside Luna when everything in my life began falling apart. Back then, I had hated him. I thought he had taken the woman I loved. I thought Luna had chosen him. And when she slapped me at the airport after her grandfather died, I believed every accusation in her eyes. I believed she hated me, so I disappeared. I never looked back. At least, that's what I had told myself. But now Chase was standing in front of me, looking like a man who had spent 8 years carrying a secret. "What exactly do you want to show me?" I asked. He stared at me for several seconds. "Proof." "Proof of what?" "That Luna didn't betray you." My heart stopped. My wife looked at me. I didn't move. Those words shouldn't have affected me. They were supposed to mean nothing. 8 years had passed. I had a wife, a daughter, a peaceful life. I had buried the person I used to be so deeply that sometimes even I wondered if that young man had ever existed. But hearing those words brought everything back. The moonlit night, the ring, Luna crying against my chest, her promise, the wedding invitation, the empty church, the decision to disappear. I swallowed hard. "You're too late." Chase's eyes narrowed. "Maybe." He walked toward the door. "But if you want to know why you never received Luna's messages." He stopped. "You'll come with me." My wife looked at me. I knew that expression. She wasn't asking me not to go. She was telling me that whatever happened next, she would stand beside me. I nodded. "Let's go." Chase's house was nothing like I expected. It wasn't a luxurious mansion. It was an old 2-story house hidden behind tall trees on the edge of the city. The moment we stepped inside, I noticed something strange. There were no family photographs, no expensive decorations, no trophies from Chase's music career. The entire place felt abandoned, as though nobody had lived there for years. My daughter held my wife's hand as we followed Chase down a narrow hallway. Then Chase stopped in front of a locked door. He took out a key. Before opening it, he looked at me. "Once you see what's inside, you won't be able to pretend your past doesn't matter anymore." I almost laughed. "I've spent 8 years pretending it doesn't." "Exactly." The lock clicked. The door opened. My breath caught. The room was filled with boxes. Hundreds of them. Old documents, photographs, letters, newspapers, phones, hard drives. Everything was carefully labeled. I stepped inside. My wife followed. "What is all this?" she whispered. "Everything I collected after Luna's grandfather died." I turned toward him. "You investigated him." "Not him." Chase looked directly into my eyes. "I investigated his death." I felt the temperature in the room drop. My wife immediately pulled our daughter closer. "You said Luna didn't betray me," I said. "I said I have proof." Chase walked toward a table and picked up a thin folder. He placed it in front of me. My name was written on it, Lincoln. Underneath it was a date. The date was 8 years ago. I opened the folder. The first document was a medical report. I read it once, then twice. My hands became cold. "That's impossible." My wife stepped closer. "What is it?" I couldn't answer. Chase did. The poison found in Luna's grandfather's body wasn't administered when everyone thought it was. My eyes remained fixed on the report. "What are you saying?" "Your grandfather-in-law was poisoned before Luna returned." I looked up. "Then why did they blame me?" "Because someone wanted you to be blamed." My wife frowned. "Who?" Chase didn't answer. Instead, he opened another folder. Inside was a photograph. Luna stood beside me. We were younger, happy. I remembered that day. It was taken shortly after I returned from the mission her grandfather had sent me on. I had steel pins in my legs. I could barely walk. But Luna had cried when she saw me. She had hugged me so tightly that I forgot the pain. I stared at the photograph. Then I noticed something. There was a man standing in the background. I knew him. My blood ran cold. "That's impossible." Chase nodded. "I knew you'd recognize him." I picked up the photograph. "He's one of Grandpa's security officers." "Exactly. But he disappeared after the funeral." "He didn't disappear." Chase's voice became quiet. "He changed his identity." My wife looked at him. Why? Chase opened another folder. Inside were bank transfers, travel records, photographs, phone logs, everything connected to the same man, but there was something else. A series of payments, every month, for almost 7 years, all coming from the same account. I stared at the account number. I knew that number. It belonged to Luna's family. My chest tightened. Someone from her family was paying him. Chase nodded. And that's only the beginning. He walked toward an old cabinet and pulled out a small metal box. Then he placed it on the table. My name was engraved on the lid. Lincoln. My wife stared at it. What's inside? Chase looked at me. You tell me. I opened the box. There was an old phone inside. The screen was cracked. The battery was dead. I recognized it immediately. My phone. The one I had used 8 years ago. I had thought I lost it before leaving the country. I picked it up. Where did you get this? I found it 3 years ago. Where? In Luna's old house. My heart pounded. You went inside. After the house was sold. He looked at me seriously. I was looking for something. What? Your messages. I stared at him. He connected the phone to a small charger. The screen remained black. Then, after several seconds, it turned on. My wife gasped. The phone showed hundreds of missed calls, messages, voice recordings, all from one person, Luna. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through them. The dates were from 8 years ago. The night before the wedding, the morning of the wedding, the afternoon, the evening, hundreds of messages. I had never received a single one. My hands trembled. I opened the first message. Lincoln, please answer me. Another. Why aren't you picking up? Another. Grandpa said you left. Another. Please don't believe what you heard. My heart began pounding violently. I kept scrolling. Then I saw one message that made everything inside me freeze. Lincoln, if you don't come tonight, they'll kill you. I stopped breathing. My wife placed a hand on my shoulder. What does it say? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I opened the next message. I know what they told you. It's a lie. Chase was never my choice. Please trust me. Then another. I never asked you to leave. Then another. If something happens to me, remember that I loved you. My vision blurred. For 8 years, I had believed Luna chose Chase. For 8 years, I had believed she wanted another life. For 8 years, I had convinced myself that disappearing was the only dignified thing I could do. But these messages, they changed everything. I looked at Chase. Why didn't you give me this? He looked away. Because I didn't have it. Then how did you find it? I told you. I found the phone. No. I stood up. My voice became colder. That's not what I mean. Chase looked at me. You knew something. He remained silent. You knew something 8 years ago. His jaw tightened. Yes. My wife immediately moved our daughter behind her. I stepped closer to Chase. What did you know? He stared at me for a long moment. Then he finally said, I knew Luna was being watched. My fists clenched. By who? Chase didn't answer. Instead, he walked to another cabinet. He pulled out a folder. This one was much thicker. He handed it to me. This contains surveillance photographs. I opened it. The first photograph showed Luna leaving a building. The second showed her entering a car. The third showed her talking to someone. The fourth showed me. My blood ran cold. Someone had been following me. For months. There were photographs of me training, eating, sleeping, walking with Luna, talking to her grandfather. Even photographs of me leaving the country. Someone had documented every movement I made. My wife looked over my shoulder. Who took these? Chase shook his head. We don't know. I turned another page. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A photograph of Luna and me standing beneath the moon. The night we exchanged rings. Except we weren't alone. Someone was standing behind a tree, watching us. I stared at the photograph. I remember that night. So do I. I looked at Chase. You were there. No. He pointed toward the photograph. Look at the person's hand. I zoomed in. There was something metallic around the person's wrist. A watch. I recognized it. My grandfather had given that exact watch to one of the family's highest-ranking members. A man I had trusted. A man who had trained me. A man who had helped raise me. My throat tightened. That can't be. Chase whispered. That's what I thought too. I looked at him. Who was it? Before he could answer, my phone rang. The sound echoed through the room. I pulled it from my pocket. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. There was silence. Then a woman's voice. Weak. Terrified. Lincoln. My entire body froze. I knew that voice. Luna. My wife immediately looked at me. Luna. I put the phone on speaker. Luna, where are you? She began crying. I shouldn't have written the book. My heart sank. What are you talking about? They know. Who? They know you found out. A loud sound came from her side, like a door being slammed. Then Luna whispered. Lincoln, listen to me carefully. I tightened my grip on the phone. Don't trust Chase. My eyes immediately went to him. Chase's face had gone completely pale. What did you say? Luna's breathing became faster. Don't trust. The call suddenly cut off. I stared at the phone. No signal. Nothing. My wife looked at Chase. He didn't move. Then I heard something outside. A car engine. Another. Then another. Chase walked quickly toward the window. His expression changed. How many people live nearby? I asked. None. I looked outside. 3 black vehicles had stopped in front of the house. Men began stepping out, armed. My wife grabbed our daughter. I immediately moved between them and the door. Chase looked at me. They found us. I tightened my fists. Who? He looked at the metal box on the table. Then he whispered. The same people who made you disappear 8 years ago. A sudden crash came from downstairs. The front door had been forced open. My daughter began crying. My wife held her tightly. I looked at Chase. For the first time since I had known him, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Then one of the men shouted from downstairs. Lincoln. I remained silent. The voice shouted again. We know you're here. My wife looked at me. I could feel her trembling. But before I could say anything, Chase suddenly grabbed my arm. There is another way out. Where? He pointed toward the floor. A tunnel. I stared at him. You built a tunnel. No. His eyes moved toward the old photograph on the table. It was built by Luna's grandfather. My blood ran cold. Why would he build a tunnel under your house? Chase shook his head. He didn't. He looked at me. This house doesn't belong to me. What? Chase slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out an old key. Then he placed it in my hand. It belonged to your grandfather. I stared at the key. The room suddenly seemed to spin. My grandfather had been dead for years. He had no reason to own this place. Unless he had been using it for something none of us knew about. A gunshot exploded downstairs. My daughter screamed. I pulled my family toward the hidden entrance Chase had shown us. But before I could open it, Chase grabbed my shoulder. Lincoln. I turned. He looked more serious than ever. If we go down there, you're going to see the truth. What truth? His voice dropped to a whisper. The truth about why Luna was never allowed to marry you. I froze. Who stopped her? Chase stared directly into my eyes. Your grandfather. I couldn't move. My grandfather had been the man who raised me, the man who trained me, the man who demanded that I become strong enough to protect Luna, the man who supposedly approved of our relationship. And now Chase was telling me that he was the one who had separated us. Another gunshot echoed through the house. My wife pulled my arm. Lincoln, we have to go. I looked at the key, then at Chase, then at the hidden door. For 8 years, I thought Luna had been the reason I lost everything. Now I was beginning to wonder if Luna had been trapped in the same lie I had been. I inserted the key. The lock clicked. The door slowly opened. Cold air rushed toward us. But before stepping inside, I noticed something carved into the wall. A sentence. One I recognized immediately. It was written in my grandfather's handwriting. Lincoln, if you are reading this, then Luna has already remembered. I stared at the words. My wife whispered. Remembered what? I didn't know. But somewhere deep inside me, I already knew one thing. The woman I had spent 8 years trying to forget might have been the only person who had been telling me the truth all along. We went down. The tunnel was narrow, cold. The walls were concrete, old, cracked in places, damp near the bottom. My wife kept one hand on our daughter's shoulder and the other on the wall. I walked first. Chase was behind us. I didn't like having him behind us. But I had no choice. The gunshots upstairs had stopped. That was worse. Silence meant they were moving carefully. It meant they were trained. How long is this tunnel? I asked. 6 minutes, Chase said. If we walk fast. Where does it come out? The old church, 2 blocks east. I had been to that church. Years ago, Luna and I had sat on its steps once. After a long walk that started as an argument and ended in laughter, I pushed the memory away. How did my grandfather know about this house? Chase hesitated. He built it. I stopped walking. What? Not the house itself. The tunnel. The room with the boxes. I turned to face him. He built the evidence room. Chase nodded. He knew this day would come. My throat tightened. Which day? Chase looked at me steadily. The day you finally came back. We kept walking. The tunnel ended at a rusted door. Chase used a separate key. The lock was stiff. He had to force it. My daughter kept her face pressed against my wife's coat. I watched Chase's hands. Watched for any sign that Luna's warning had meant something. Don't trust Chase. 3 words. Spoken in a whisper. With fear underneath. They were the last thing Luna had said before the call cut off. But something about her voice hadn't sounded like a warning about Chase specifically. It had sounded like a warning about everything. The door opened. Cold night air. We were in a basement. Old stone walls. A wooden staircase. The church? I asked. Above us, Chase said. I led my family up the stairs. A storage room. Candles. Boxes. Old hymn books. We moved through into the main church. Empty. Quiet. Moonlight through the windows. My daughter looked up at the stained glass. She didn't say anything. My wife pressed her lips to the top of our daughter's head. I turned to Chase. Talk. He looked tired. Like a man who had been carrying something for years and finally decided to put it down. Sit, he said. I'll stand. He nodded. Then listen. I crossed my arms. And waited. Chase began at the beginning. Not the beginning I knew. A different one. Luna's grandfather and your grandfather were partners, he said. Before either of them built their empires. Before families. They were friends first. I said nothing. They built something together. Something they never told anyone about. What? Chase sat on a wooden pew. An organization. Private. No name. No official records. Intelligence contractors before governments had a word for it. My skin prickled. They worked for themselves. They worked for whoever needed them. And over time, that became complicated. I thought of my grandfather. The discipline he demanded. The training. The lessons that felt more like preparation for war than for life. Did he tell you this? I asked. No. I found records. In the evidence room. Some. The rest I found over years. My wife sat in the nearest pew. She pulled our daughter close. Why would they hide it? She asked. Chase looked at her. Because what they built created enemies. People who wanted access to what they knew. I began to understand. Someone came for them. Chase nodded. And Luna's grandfather tried to protect what mattered most. Luna. And you. The moonlight shifted. The church was very quiet. My grandfather knew, I said slowly. Yes. He knew we were being watched. Yes. And instead of telling me, I stopped. I already knew the answer. Chase reached into his coat. He pulled out a small notebook. The cover was brown, worn, the corners soft from years of handling. He held it out. I took it. Your grandfather's, he said. I opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable, precise, careful, every letter formed with intention. I recognized it from letters he had written me as a boy. I read the first entry, dated 9 years ago, 1 year before the wedding. It read, Lincoln is ready, but the timing is wrong. They have found the archive. If Lincoln marries Luna now, both become targets. The only way to protect them is to separate them. Luna's grandfather agrees. The plan has been set. I stopped reading. My hand had gone numb. He planned it, I said. My voice sounded strange, flat, like I was speaking from somewhere far away. They both did, Chase said quietly. I closed the notebook. My wife was watching me. Lincoln, she said softly. I shook my head and opened it again. The second entry was 6 weeks later. Lincoln has been told Luna chose Chase. He believes it. He has disappeared. The plan is working. Luna does not know the truth. It is better this way. She cannot carry the weight of a secret while they are watching her. I read it 3 more times. My grandfather had lied to me, on purpose, to protect me, and Luna had not known. She had been as deceived as I had been. The silence in the church was enormous. I sat down, not because I wanted to, because my legs decided they were done holding me. My wife moved to sit beside me. She didn't touch me. She just sat close. That was enough. I stared at the notebook. She didn't know, I said. No, she sent those messages without knowing what they had planned. Correct. I thought of the messages on the old phone, all those words, all that fear, all that love, sent into silence, because someone had made sure I would never receive them. They blocked the messages, I said. Her grandfather's security team intercepted them, the same officer you recognized in the photograph. The one who disappeared after the funeral. He was given a new life and a monthly payment to stay silent. I thought of the bank transfers in the folder. Luna's family was paying him. One of her uncles had been managing payments since her grandfather died. Does Luna know? Chase hesitated. She knows some. She wrote the book. I looked up. What book? Chase looked at me carefully. Her novel. I stared at him. Her novel was about this. Not directly. She changed the names, the details, but the core was real. I pressed my hands together. That's why they're after her now. Someone recognized the truth inside the fiction. 8 years of silence, and one book had broken it open. I looked at Chase. What's your part in all this? He looked down at his hands. I've been asking myself that for 8 years. Tell me anyway. He was quiet. Luna's grandfather trusted me. He knew I had feelings for Luna. My jaw tightened. He used that. He asked me to stay close to her, to protect her without telling her why, to be the distraction the plan needed. I agreed because I thought I loved her. Did you? I thought I did. He looked up, but watching her spend 8 years grieving a relationship she never understood losing, he paused. It changed what I thought love meant. My wife was listening carefully. She had the expression she wore when processing something she wouldn't comment on until she fully understood it. You stayed close to her, I said. Yes. But you didn't become her choice. No, he shook his head. I never became her choice. She knew. She knew I wasn't you. The moonlight had moved. We had been inside the church over 20 minutes. Where is Luna now? I asked. Chase looked troubled. I don't know. The call could have come from anywhere. Could it have been staged? He met my eyes. I don't think so. But you're not sure. He said nothing. That was my answer. My daughter fell asleep against my wife's shoulder. Even in a church. Even after gunshots and tunnels. Children could sleep through anything. I envied that. I sat beside them and kept my voice low. The inscription on the wall, I said to Chase. Luna has already remembered. He nodded. What does it mean? He leaned forward. When Luna was a child, she witnessed something. Related to her grandfather's organization. Something she wasn't supposed to see. What? A meeting. An exchange. Something that would have made her dangerous to them if anyone knew. So she was made to forget. Her grandfather had connections in the medical field. I stared at him. He had her memory suppressed. Chase looked uncomfortable. Suppressed. Not altered exactly. There's a difference. In his mind there was. I stood up. That's why she hit her head during mountain climbing. It may have triggered something. The memory came back. Chase nodded. And she wrote the book before she fully understood what she remembered. I paced between the pews. The pieces were coming together. But the picture they formed was not the one I had expected. My grandfather had not been a villain. He had been a man trying to protect two people he loved from a danger he couldn't explain. And in doing so, he had broken them apart. Separately. In different rooms. Without ever letting them know the other hadn't chosen to leave. The archive, I said. What is it exactly? Chase stood. He moved to a small alcove near the back. He lifted a loose stone from the floor. Beneath it was a weathered metal case. He brought it to me. I moved it here 2 days ago, he said, when I realized they were closing in. He set it on the pew beside me. This is what they want. The case had no lock. I opened it. Inside were 6 drives, each labeled with a year. From 30 years ago to 9 years ago. What's on them? Everything. Every operation. Every contract. Every name. Every government that hired them. Every crime sanctioned under secrecy. I stared at the drives. This could bring down a lot of powerful people. It already brought down 2 families. I looked at him. Luna's grandfather died for this. He destroyed the original copies before they could take them, but they never found the duplicates. Which are here? Which are here? My wife had shifted our sleeping daughter to the pew. She stood and came to look at the case. How many people are looking for this? She asked. Chase exhaled. More than we can count. She studied the drives. What happens if it gets out? Governments fall. Investigations begin. People protected for decades become exposed. She looked at me. And Luna's book pointed them to the fact that someone still had these. Yes. My wife looked at me, we both understood. Luna hadn't just written a novel, she had unknowingly lit a signal fire. I picked up one of the drives. It felt ordinary, small, something you could carry in a pocket, something that could disappear. My grandfather kept duplicates, I said. He didn't trust anyone else to hold them. Not even Luna's grandfather. By the end, they trusted each other less. Why? Chase sat again. He seemed like a man running on very little sleep. Something happened in the last year, before Luna's grandfather died. A disagreement over what to do with the archive. Luna's grandfather wanted it destroyed. And mine wanted it preserved. Chase nodded. As leverage. Protection, I said. That's how he would have called it. Yes. I set the drive down carefully. He believed that as long as he held the archive, no one could touch anyone he cared about. That was his theory. But it only works if no one knows you have it. Chase said nothing, which meant I was right. Someone had learned the truth. The security officer, I said. We believe he talked. To who? That's what we don't know. I looked at the case again. 6 drives, 30 years of secrets, and 2 old men who had tried to use them as a shield. One had died, one had hidden the truth from everyone he loved, and I had spent 8 years in a life built from the wreckage of a lie. I thought about my grandfather in his final days. He had never told me, not once. He had taken it with him. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then breathing. Then Luna's voice. Steadier this time. Lincoln. Where are you? I can't tell you that. Are you safe? A pause. For now. I moved away from the others. Luna. The warning about Chase. I know. Explain it. She was quiet for several seconds. When I said don't trust Chase, I wasn't talking about right now. Then what? About 8 years ago. My chest tightened. He knew, she said. He knew what our grandfathers planned. And he didn't tell me. He says he was protecting you. I know why he did it. Her voice was careful. That doesn't mean I trust him completely. But he's been gathering evidence. He has his own reasons. I pressed my back against the stone wall. What reasons? Ask him what he wants to do with the archive. I looked at Chase across the church. He was watching me. Luna. Yes. Your grandfather had your memory suppressed. Long silence. I know that now. The book you wrote was me trying to understand what was coming back. And now that it's fully back. Her voice became quieter. Now I understand what they were trying to protect. The archive. And us. 2 letters. 1 word. It landed softly, like something placed down carefully. Lincoln, she said. I heard you. I'm not asking for anything. I know. I just needed you to know the truth. A pause. Then she said, your wife is a good woman. I looked across the church. My wife was sitting beside our sleeping daughter, her hand resting over our daughter's. She is, I said. Take care of them. The call ended. I stood against the wall for a long moment. The church was very quiet. Moonlight, stone, the soft breathing of my daughter. My wife looked at me from across the room. She didn't ask. She waited. I walked back to them, sat beside her. She reached over and took my hand, not urgently, just firmly, the way she had held it at every important moment in our years together. She's safe, I said. For now. For now. She nodded. She didn't ask what Luna had said. She didn't need to. I thought about how well she knew me, how she had sat in this church without asking anything. How she had held our daughter in a tunnel without letting fear show on her face. 8 years ago I had disappeared from a life that had broken me, and somewhere along the way I had found a woman who never asked me to be anything other than who I was becoming. Chase moved toward us. We need to make a decision. I looked at him. About the archive. About all of it. I looked at the metal case, then at my wife, then at our daughter. What does Luna want to do with it? I asked Chase. He was quiet. She wants it released. All of it. Every drive. That will expose her grandfather. She knows. It will expose mine. She knows that too. I stared at the case. She's willing to let the world know what they did. She believes that's the only way it ends. My wife looked at the case, then at me. What do you believe? She asked quietly. I believed my grandfather had been trying to protect me. I believed he had made a terrible decision in a moment when he thought the alternatives were worse. I believed he had watched me disappear from my own life and had carried that until he died. I also believed that the man hiding behind the tree in the photograph had never been brought to justice. I believed 6 drives sitting in a church were the only honest things left in a story built on careful lies. Luna is right, I said. Chase looked at me steadily. Are you certain? No, he waited. But I'm certain that whatever my grandfather intended, this isn't what he would have wanted. What do you think he wanted? I thought of the inscription. Lincoln, if you are reading this, then Luna has already remembered. He had written that for me. He had known I would come back. He had known Luna would find the truth. He had left a trail, not to bury everything deeper, to lead me here. He wanted it finished, I said. He just didn't know how to do it himself. Chase was quiet. My wife studied me carefully. Our daughter shifted in her sleep. Then we finish it, my wife said. Not loudly, just quietly, like a simple fact. I looked at her. She met my eyes. No hesitation, no fear. Just the same steady woman who had walked through a tunnel in the dark without letting go of our daughter's hand. Together, she said. I nodded. Together. We needed to move. The men at Chase's house wouldn't stay there long. Once they found the tunnel, they would find the church. We had maybe an hour. We need someone we trust, I said. Someone with the resources to handle the archive properly. Journalists? Chase asked. Not directly. They can be gotten to. An organization. International. Outside the reach of whoever is funding those men. My wife looked at me. There's someone. I looked at her. Your old commander, she said. I had not thought of him in years. Colonel Ferris. Retired from active service but with contacts that stretched across every intelligence agency in the Western Hemisphere. He had once told me that the most dangerous thing in the world was a secret everyone wanted but no one deserved. Do you have his number? Chase asked. He changes it regularly. But you know how to reach him. I did. A protocol. A series of messages through channels we had established years ago. It will take time, I said. We need to be somewhere safe while we wait. Chase picked up the metal case. I have a secondary location. I looked at him. How many secondary locations do you have? Enough. Luna warned me not to trust you. Luna was right to be cautious. He met my gaze. But right now, I'm the only one who knows where they all are. I studied him. He didn't look away. I also want it finished, he said. Quietly. Seriously. Like a man who had spent years on the wrong side and finally knew which direction was out. I picked up our daughter. She didn't wake. Lead the way, I said. Chase's secondary location was a one-room apartment above a hardware store. Nobody looks at places like that twice. No windows facing the street. One door in, same door out. He had supplies, water, food, medical kit, burner phones. My wife took one look at the space and began arranging it into something functional. Extra blankets, a corner for our daughter. Chairs moved to face the door. I watched her. She never panicked. She never stopped moving. I used a burner phone to initiate the contact protocol for Ferris. 3 messages to 3 separate addresses, each containing one piece of a phrase that would mean nothing to anyone else. Then I waited. Chase sat on the floor, his back against the wall. He looked exhausted. When did you first realize what had happened? I asked. He looked up. About 2 years after you left. What made you figure it out? Luna stopped grieving. I frowned. What do you mean? She stopped crying for you, but she didn't become happy. He paused. She became determined, like she was looking for something. I started watching more carefully. And you found the officer. Took another year. But yes. You could have told her. I had no proof yet. When you got proof. He was quiet. I told myself it would hurt her. It already hurt her. I know that now. He rubbed his face. I made the same mistake they did. He looked at me. I decided for her. I said nothing, because I understood. I had made the same mistake by disappearing. The burner phone buzzed at 3 a.m. One message, a number I didn't recognize, but the phrase inside was right. Ferris. I replied with the second part. 30 seconds later, the phone rang. You're either in serious trouble, Ferris said, or testing to see if I've gotten slow. Serious trouble. How serious? Archive level. A pause. I heard him set something down. Where are you? I gave him the city, not the address. Not yet. What have you got? 6 drives. Everything. Everything. Not a question. He understood immediately. Who's with you? My wife and daughter. And someone I'm not completely sure of. Someone you're working with anyway. Yes. Smart. Necessary. He was quiet. This is going to create significant chaos. It already has. There are people who will try to stop it. They're already trying. Another pause. I'll need 48 hours to arrange a proper handoff. We may not have 48 hours. Then find somewhere to breathe for 24 and call me again. Understood. Lincoln. Yes. Your grandfather was a complicated man. I looked at the notebook sitting beside me. I'm beginning to understand that. He made mistakes. I know. But he also made you. I said nothing. Stay alive, Ferris said. We'll talk when this is done. He ended the call. I set the phone down. My wife was watching me. Tomorrow, she asked. 24 hours. She lay down beside our daughter, closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. I watched them. Then I opened the notebook. I read every entry. There were 41. The first was from 9 years ago. The last from 6 months before my grandfather died. I read all of them. Some were short, just a sentence or two. Some were long and dense, full of names and operations I had never heard of. But the ones about me were the ones I kept returning to. He had written them carefully, like a man explaining himself to someone who wasn't there yet. The entry from the week of the wedding read, I watched Lincoln's photograph today, the one Luna keeps on her bookshelf. He looks happy, genuinely happy. I don't know if he will ever look that way again. That is my fault. But the alternative was watching him disappear in a different way. They would have used him, or eliminated him. I chose a clean wound over a slow poison. I don't know if I chose correctly. I closed the notebook, put it down, then picked it up again. The last entry was dated 4 months before he died. The handwriting was shakier, less precise, but still careful. It read, I have left everything in place. The tunnel, the house, the boxes, the archive. If Lincoln finds it, it will be because Luna led him there. Either way, the truth will be in his hands. He will know I was wrong to do it the way I did it. He will also know I did not stop loving him. That is the part that matters. The rest is history. History can be changed. Love cannot be undone. I read those last words 4 times. Love cannot be undone. I pressed my hand flat against the page. Then I set the notebook aside and let myself feel every single thing I had locked away. I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark and thought. I thought about who I had been before the wedding, more certain, believing that love was a decision made once and held forever, believing the people I trusted were constant. None of that was true, but here was what was true. My wife sleeping beside our daughter across the room, the way she had taken my hand in the church without asking, the way she had said together without hesitating, the way she had organized a strange apartment above a hardware store into something that felt like shelter rather than a trap. I thought about what Luna had said on the phone. Your wife is a good woman, said without bitterness, without performance, just observed and stated, like a fact. Luna had spent 8 years believing I had abandoned her, and she had still recognized what was real. My daughter made a small sound in her sleep. My wife pulled her closer without waking. Whatever had been broken 8 years ago was not this. This was something I had built from the pieces that remained, and it was whole, not perfect, but whole. I stood, moved to the window, looked out at the empty street below. Nobody, nothing, just the city at 4 a.m., breathing quietly to itself. I kept watch until morning. My wife woke before our daughter. She came and stood beside me at the window. We looked at the street together. How long have you been up? She asked. All night. She didn't tell me I should have slept. She knew better. After a moment she asked, what was in the notebook? His reasoning. And he thought he was protecting us. Was he? Maybe, in the short term. But he didn't trust us with the truth. She was quiet. That's the part you can't get past. Not what he decided, how he decided it, without telling either of us. She nodded slowly. My mother did something like that once. I looked at her. Not as dramatic, she added, but she hid something from me for years because she thought it would hurt me. Did it? The hiding hurt more than the thing would have. I turned back to the window. She did it because she loved me, she said. I know. It doesn't make the hiding right. No, but it makes it human. I looked at her. There was no performance in her face. No attempt to manage what I was feeling. Just her, standing beside me, seeing me clearly. Thank you, I said. She frowned slightly. For what? For not pretending this is simple. She looked back at the street. Nothing real is simple. She was right. She almost always was. Our daughter woke at 7. She looked around the apartment. Then at me. Then at Chase, asleep in the corner. Then at my wife. "Where are we?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," my wife said. "Is it an adventure?" she asked. My wife and I looked at each other. "Yes," I said. Our daughter accepted this and asked for breakfast. There wasn't much. Crackers, canned fruit, water. She ate without complaint, then sat beside me and leaned against my arm. I put my hand on her shoulder. She was 7 years old. She had walked through a tunnel in the dark. She had slept on the floor of an empty church. She had woken in a strange apartment without crying. I thought about what she would remember of this. Probably the adventure of it, the parts that felt like a story. Children filter experience through wonder rather than fear. I was grateful for that. Chase woke a few minutes later, sat up, pressed his palms to his eyes, then looked at us. "We made it to morning," he said. "We did," I said. He nodded, like that was its own victory. "Ferris needs 19 more hours," I said. "And then what?" "We hand off the archive to people who know what to do with it." "You trust him?" "I trust him to want the right outcome. Even if it exposes your grandfather." I looked at the notebook on the floor. My grandfather left the archive knowing what it would expose. Chase was quiet. "He wanted it finished," he said. "Yes. Even the parts about himself. Especially those." At 9 in the morning, the burner phone buzzed. Not Ferris. A different number. The message was 2 words. Luna's pattern even in a text. "Safe. Moving." I showed Chase. He let out a slow breath. "She's still ahead of them. Or they're letting her run." He looked at me. "You think they'd do that? If they're using her to lead them somewhere?" He frowned. "To us. To the archive." My wife had been listening. "Then we need to move before she reaches us." I thought about it. If Luna was being tracked and she knew where we were, she wouldn't come here, Chase said. "How do you know?" "Because she knows they might be watching. Or she doesn't know they're watching. Luna always knows when she's being watched." I considered that. "What makes you trust her instincts?" I asked. He looked down. "Because the same instinct that made her write the book is what kept her alive through everything that came after." I looked at the phone again. "Safe. Moving." She wasn't telling me where she was. She was telling me she was aware. I typed back 3 words. "Archive is protected." No reply. That was fine. She would understand. "We stay," I said. The hours moved slowly. My wife played quiet games with our daughter. Word games. Pattern games. Our daughter won most of them. She was sharper than she seemed. Like her mother. I watched them from the window. Chase cleaned and reorganized the supplies. He needed movement. He couldn't sit still when there was waiting. I understood that. I used to be the same. At some point I had learned to be still, not because I had become calm, because I had learned that movement without direction was just noise. "You were trained by your grandfather?" Chase asked. "Yes. Combat. Intelligence. Survival. Yes. He absorbed this. And you walked away from all of it." "I built something else." "How?" I looked at my wife and daughter. "Someone gave me a reason." Chase was quiet. "Was it easy?" "No." "Did you miss it?" "I thought about that. Sometimes. But not enough to go back." "No." He looked at his hands. "Luna asked me once what I would have done differently. If I could." "What did you say?" "I said I would have told her the truth when I found out. Even if it put her at risk. Even then." He looked at me. "She deserved to decide for herself." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "She did." Ferris called at 6 p.m. Not the burner phone. A different channel. A number that only existed for a specific kind of communication. "Change of timeline," he said. "Faster or slower?" "Faster. Something's moving." "What kind of something?" 3 governments. A very uncomfortable set of questions about classified operations. "Someone already leaked. Not the archive, but Luna's book has been read by the right people." I pressed the phone harder against my ear. "It's already started. The wheels are turning. The archive will accelerate everything. How soon can you make contact?" "Tonight. Give me the address." I looked at Chase. He had heard enough. He nodded. I gave Ferris the address. 2 hours, he said. "We'll be here." I ended the call. Chase stood. "This is it. This is it." My wife brought our daughter to sit closer to us. Our daughter looked between us. "Are the bad people coming?" The room was quiet. "Some good people are coming," I said. "To help." "Yes." She thought about this. "How do you know they're good?" I looked at my wife. She was watching me. "Because they've spent a long time trying to fix something that shouldn't have been broken," I said. Our daughter considered that with the seriousness only 7-year-olds manage. Then she nodded. Okay. She leaned back against my wife. I looked at the metal case in the corner. 6 drives. 2 hours. Ferris arrived in 90 minutes. With 2 people I didn't recognize. A woman with sharp eyes who said nothing. A younger man who carried a secure case and moved with deliberate precision. Ferris himself looked older than I remembered. More weathered. But his eyes were the same. Calm. Measuring. Missing nothing. He looked at me. You look like him. I knew who he meant. I've been told. He looked at my wife. You're braver than most civilians I've met. She met his gaze. I had good reason to be. He studied Chase next. Recognition. Not warmth, but acknowledgement. You're the one who gathered the evidence, Ferris said. For 8 years, Chase said. Alone. Mostly. Ferris nodded once. Then he turned to the metal case. May I? I stepped aside. He opened it. Looked at the drives. He didn't touch them immediately. He looked at them for a long moment. 30 years, he said quietly. Yes. He closed the case. The woman who wrote the novel. Luna. Is she safe? Last message said she was moving. Good. He looked at me. She's going to need to be part of this testimony. She'll agree. You sound certain. I thought of her voice on the phone. The steadiness of it. She's been carrying this for 8 years, I said. She's ready to put it down. Ferris looked at me for a long moment. Then he picked up the case. Then let's put it down. The handoff was not dramatic. Ferris's team took the drives, documented them, registered the transfer on their encrypted system, signed paperwork I had never expected to see in a situation like this. When it was done, he looked at me. There will be investigators who want to speak with you. When? Soon. We'll arrange something secure. What about my family? We'll arrange protection while the process unfolds. How long? He exhaled slowly. Years, but it begins tonight. I nodded. And my grandfather's name. He looked at me steadily. Will be attached to what he did. All of it. I expected that to feel worse than it did. He left the archive knowing that, I said. Yes. Then he made his peace with it. Ferris looked at me for a long moment. He asked about you, he said, before he died. I hadn't known that. He asked if you had found a life worth keeping. My throat tightened. What did you tell him? That I didn't know, but that knowing you, you probably had. I looked at my wife. She was sitting with our daughter. Our daughter had fallen asleep again. My wife was watching me. He was right, I said. Ferris followed my gaze. Yes, he said quietly. He was. After Ferris left, the apartment felt different. Lighter. Like something pressing down on the room had been removed. Chase sat on the floor. He looked emptied. Not in a bad way. The way a container looks after being filled too long and finally releasing what it was holding. What happens to you now? I asked. He shook his head slowly. I don't know. You've been carrying this alone for 8 years. Yes. That's over. Yes. He looked at his hands. I don't know who I am without it. I understood that. I had felt the same when I left my old life. You figure it out slowly, I said. He looked up. Does it get easier? Some parts. Which parts? I looked at my wife. The parts where you stop punishing yourself for the past. He followed my gaze. Then back at me. She makes it easier, he said. Yes. Luna was like that. He said it without self-pity. Just a fact. Luna helped me ask better questions, he said. Even without knowing she was doing it. I thought of the messages on the old phone. The hundreds of calls. Into silence. She was always the kind of person who didn't give up, I said. Chase almost smiled. No, she never did. He stood. I should leave you. Where will you go? He picked up his coat. I told Luna I'd go to her when this was done. I looked at him. She asked you to. She did. As what? He met my eyes. As a friend. He said the word carefully, like someone learning its real weight. Good, I said. And I meant it. Chase left. The door closed behind him. My wife shifted our daughter carefully to the blanket. Our daughter didn't wake. My wife came and stood beside me. It's done, she said. The first part. The hardest part. I thought about that. Maybe. She looked at me. Are you all right? I don't know yet. She nodded. That's honest. We stood in the quiet apartment. No urgency now. No footsteps. No locked doors or tunnels or urgent voices. Just the city outside the window. And the two of us. I need to tell you something, I said. All right. I turned to face her. She waited. Not impatiently, just ready. When I read those messages tonight, Luna's messages, from 8 years ago. She held my gaze. It wasn't just about what I had lost. She said nothing. It was about understanding that someone else lost just as much. She was still, someone who didn't know why. Yes. She spent 8 years thinking you chose to leave. Yes. Without any explanation. Yes. My wife looked at me carefully, and that changed how you feel about her. I thought about my answer. The right one, the true one. It completed something I had been keeping unfinished, I said. It let me grieve what it was, instead of what I thought it was. She absorbed that. And now it's finished. She looked at me for a long moment, then she nodded, just once, like something had been confirmed. We slept in that apartment, all three of us, on the floor, our daughter between us, like a small anchor. I lay awake for a while, not from anxiety, from something quieter, the kind of silence that comes after something has been resolved rather than avoided. I thought about my grandfather, the entries in his notebook, the inscription on the wall, the tunnel beneath the house he had built without telling anyone. He had spent the last years of his life creating a path for me to find. He had trusted that I would return, that Luna would remember, that the truth would survive long enough for someone to use it correctly. He had not trusted us with the knowledge, but he had trusted us with everything that came after. That was his version of belief, imperfect, costly, but real. I thought of his last notebook entry. Love cannot be undone. He had written that for himself, maybe for me, maybe for both. I lay in the dark and thought about the 8 years I had spent building a life I had not expected to build, and I realized something. Those years were not a consolation, they were not a second choice, they were what happened when a person kept going, when a person found someone worth going toward. My wife breathed evenly beside me, our daughter's hand had found mine in her sleep. I held it carefully. This was real, this had always been real. Morning came, clear, cool. I stood at the window and watched the city wake. Delivery vans, people walking to work, a woman arguing into her phone. My wife made coffee from the small supplies Chase had left. She handed me a cup. We stood side by side. I want to go home, she said. Soon. Our daughter has school on Monday. I almost smiled. She does. She missed 2 days already. She'll catch up. My wife sipped her coffee. Will Ferris arrange transport? I'll call him this morning. She nodded, already thinking practically, already moving toward what came next. I had always admired that about her. The ability to grieve something and then organize the groceries. Not because grief didn't matter, because life continued alongside it. There will be investigators, I said. It may complicate things at home. I know. For months, possibly. I know. Are you prepared for that? She looked at me. Are you asking if I'm prepared, or if I blame you? Both. She held my gaze. I'm prepared. And no. Simple. Definitive. You didn't create this, she said. I walked into it. So did I. She held the coffee cup with both hands, eyes open. I put my arm around her shoulder. She leaned against me briefly, then she straightened up. She always straightened up. Go call Ferris, she said. Yes. I went to find the burner phone. Ferris arranged transport. We left the apartment at noon. My daughter carried her small backpack with the focused responsibility of someone managing something important. My wife walked beside me. 2 escorts from Ferris's team kept a professional distance. In the vehicle, my daughter looked out the window. Are we going home? She asked. Yes, I said. With the bad people still out there. Some of the bad people are being dealt with. By Ferris. By Ferris. She thought about that. He seemed serious. He is. But he was nice to you. We've known each other a long time. She leaned back. I liked the church, she said. My wife looked at me. The moonlight, our daughter added. I thought of the stained glass. The way she had looked up without fear. Me too, I said. The city moved past the windows. I thought about the drives in Ferris's secure case. Moving in a different direction. Toward people who would know how to use them. I thought about Luna somewhere in the city. Moving. Carrying the truth in a different way now. I thought about Chase. Going to find her. Not as a romantic choice. As a decision about who he wanted to be. I thought about my grandfather. The notebook. The inscription. The trail he had left. He had gotten so much wrong. And still left the path forward. That was the complicated thing about people. They carried both. We reached the airport. Ferris's people cleared us through. We sat in a private lounge. Our daughter immediately found a window seat and pressed her nose against the glass to watch the planes. My wife sat beside me. We had been in the same room for nearly 24 hours without time alone, without privacy, without the space a home provides. And yet we had not needed it. I thought about how some people needed distance to stay together. And some people held together precisely because they had none. Luna called Chase, my wife said. I looked at her. While you were with Ferris last night, I heard Chase's side. You didn't mention it. There wasn't time. She looked at the window. She was asking about you. What did Chase say? He said yes. Was he certain? My wife looked at me. He said he thought so. He said you seemed like someone who had landed somewhere good. I held those words. Landed somewhere good. I had. Did he tell her about your wife and daughter? Yes. What did she say? My wife looked at our daughter at the window. She said she was glad. I exhaled slowly. She meant it. I know. My wife was quiet. Then, she loved you very much. I looked at my hands. Yes. And she let go. Yes. She looked at me with the expression she wore when saying something true and important without embellishment. That takes a kind of strength I respect, she said. I looked at her. Me too, I said. She took my hand. And we waited for our flight. On the plane, our daughter slept almost immediately. My wife leaned her head back. She didn't sleep, but she closed her eyes. I looked out the window. The ground fell away below us. The city reduced to patterns of light. Then clouds. Then just sky. I thought about the moment in the tunnel when the door had opened and cold air had hit my face. I thought about the inscription. Lincoln, if you are reading this, then Luna has already remembered. My grandfather had sat somewhere and written those words. He had known, maybe for years, that the tunnel existed, that the archive was secured, that the trail led somewhere specific. He had built a future event out of careful preparation, and then he had died without knowing if it would ever be used. That was its own kind of faith. Flawed, complicated, but real. I took out the notebook. I had kept it. Maybe I would return it someday. To an investigator. To a collection of things that explained how history was made by people who were both careful and wrong. Or maybe I would keep it. So that when my daughter was old enough, when she asked questions about the grandfather she never knew, I could show her who he was. Not a hero. Not a villain. A man. Who made decisions in the dark. And still tried to leave the lights on for the people coming after him. I put the notebook in my bag. I looked out at the clouds. For the first time in 8 years, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Quiet. Real quiet. Not the forced kind. Not the hollow kind. The kind that meant something had ended that was supposed to end. We landed. Our home city. The familiar light. The house was quiet when we arrived. Everything as we had left it. Our daughter went directly to her room. The familiar one. With her books and her particular arrangement of objects she could recreate from memory. She emerged 10 minutes later looking reassured. Everything was where she had put it. The world had continued without her. Normal tomorrow, she asked. Normal tomorrow, my wife said. Our daughter nodded. Satisfied. She went to prepare for bed. My wife and I stood in the kitchen. The ordinary one. With the coffee maker we had bought 3 years ago. The photographs on the wall. The drawer that stuck. Everything that constituted a home built from ordinary days. Normal tomorrow, my wife said again, quietly, to herself, or to me, I couldn't tell. It won't be entirely normal, I said. No, but we'll do what we do. Which is? She looked at me, keep going. I looked around the kitchen, at the accumulated evidence of a life. Yes, I said, keep going. 3 days later, an investigator came. His name was Reyes. He was courteous. He wore an ordinary coat. He sat at our kitchen table and asked me questions for 3 hours. My wife had taken our daughter to school before he arrived. We had agreed on that. Reyes worked through a thorough list. My grandfather's name, the operations, the archive, my relationship with Luna, the years of silence, the night at Chase's house. I answered everything. I held nothing back. There was nothing left worth protecting. At the end, Reyes set down his pen. Your grandfather, he said. Yes. He knew what this investigation would do to his name. Yes. And he built the evidence room anyway. Yes. Reyes looked at the table. That's not what guilty men do. No, I said, but it's not what fully innocent men do either. No, I said again. Reyes looked at me. He was somewhere in between. Most people are. He picked up his pen. Thank you for your cooperation. Are we done? For today, we'll need to speak again. I'll be here. He stood. At the door he turned. The woman, Luna. Yes. She's cooperating fully. I know. He looked at me carefully. She mentioned you. What did she say? That you would tell the truth. I looked at him. She was right. He nodded. She usually is, he said. And he left. My wife came home with our daughter at noon. Our daughter had brought drawings from school. She placed them on the kitchen table with ceremony. 3 drawings, one of the church, one of the adventure tunnel, one of our family, stick figures, me, my wife, her. She had drawn a 4th stick figure beside us, smaller, off to one side. Who is that? My wife asked. Our daughter pointed. The woman from the phone. My wife looked at me. You heard the call, I said. Some of it, our daughter said. She picked up a crayon. She sounded sad. She colored the 4th figure's hair carefully, but also like she was going to be okay. She examined her work. I put her next to us so she's not alone. She said it simply, without drama, the way children speak about things they haven't learned to complicate. My wife pressed her hand flat on the drawing for a moment, then looked up at me. Her eyes were clear, not sad exactly, something steadier than sad. She has her mother's instincts, I said. My wife looked at our daughter, who was now drawing something new. She does, she said quietly. I looked at the drawing. 4 stick figures, 3 of us, one beside us, not apart from us, just beside. Our daughter had drawn it without thinking about what it meant. Sometimes the truest things were said exactly like that. A week after Reyes came, I received a letter. Physical mail, handwritten, no return address. Inside was 1 page, Luna's handwriting. I recognized it from the messages on the old phone. It was short, 8 sentences. I read it once, then twice. Then I sat at the kitchen table and held it. My wife came and sat across from me. She didn't ask what it said. She waited. After a moment I read it to her. Lincoln, I hope you found your way home. I hope your daughter draws things she doesn't fully understand yet and that they turn out to be true. I hope your wife knows that what you built with her was never second. It was first. It was its own thing. The past is a country I visit less now. I think you understand that. I'm going to be fine. I already am, mostly. Thank you for coming back, even if you came back for the truth and not for me. The truth was enough. Luna. I set the letter on the table. My wife looked at it, then at me. She's going to be all right, she said. Yes. She means it. I know. She reached across and put her hand on mine. And us. I looked at her. Us too. She held my hand. Outside, our daughter was in the yard. I could hear her talking to herself. The steady sound of a child making sense of the world in her own language. My wife squeezed my hand once. Then she let go. And she stood up to start lunch. I wrote back. 1 page. 8 sentences seemed right. Luna. I found my way home. It was already there when I got back. I think you knew it would be. I came for the truth and the truth was all of it, including what it cost both of us to live without it. I don't think either of us chose wrong. I think we were chosen for, without knowing. That's different. I hope the country you visit less feels smaller every year. I hope Chase is a better friend than he was anything else. I hope you write more. I hope it's easier. Lincoln. I sealed it. Sent it to an address Ferris had given me. A secure forwarding address. Then I sat at my desk for a long time. I took out the notebook. Read 2 entries I had skipped. The first was from 3 years ago. I learned today that Lincoln has a daughter. A mutual contact saw him in a park. She has his way of standing, still as water until something moves. I am glad. I thought it might go the other way. Some things run in families. The bad ones as well as the good. He chose the good ones. The second entry was from a year before he died. The writing was very unsteady. I hope he forgives me, not for my sake, for his. Unforgiveness is expensive. He's earned the right to spend his energy on better things. I closed the notebook. I put it back in my bag. I would keep it, not to be angry, not to grieve, to remember that good intentions could cause real damage, and to never forget the difference. That was the lesson worth carrying. The investigation moved slowly. This was expected. Too many governments, too many names to protect, too many years of arranged silence to unravel. But it moved. Reyes called twice a month. Luna testified. Chase testified. I testified again twice more. The security officer who had spent 7 years under a false identity was located and brought in. He cooperated, which was perhaps the only surprising thing. He had spent years apparently waiting for someone to come, almost as if waiting for permission to stop. Some people were like that. They carried guilt the way my grandfather had carried the archive, as a burden, as something they didn't know how to put down alone. At home, the weeks normalized. Our daughter went to school. My wife worked. I rebuilt my consulting work. We ate dinner together. We talked about ordinary things. We argued once about the drawer that stuck. It was a brief, silly argument. We apologized within the hour. That was also ordinary. My wife and I had learned early that arguments were not defeats. They were the evidence of two people living together honestly. The ones that never happened were the dangerous ones. We had had enough of things that were never said. We had decided, without making a rule of it, to say the things. Even the small, inconvenient ones. Even the stuck drawer ones. Especially those. 6 months after the tunnel, I went back to my grandfather's house. The official one. The actual place where he had lived. It was in the process of being cleared. I brought my wife. Our daughter stayed with a friend. The house was large, quiet in the particular way houses are when the person who filled them is gone. I walked through the rooms. My wife walked with me. I recognized certain things. The bookshelf in the study. The kitchen with its specific smell of old wood. The chair where he used to read. I stood beside the chair for a long time. "What are you thinking?" my wife asked. "Trying to remember the last time I sat with him." "Can you?" "Partially." I looked at the chair. He was reading. I was telling him something about work. He was listening the way he had. Like he was taking notes in his head. "He sounds like you." I looked at her. "I've been told." She looked around the room. "He loved you," she said. "Yes. In the wrong direction sometimes." "Yes. But the love was real." I looked at the chair. It was. She took my hand. We stood in his study for a while. Two people in a room that belonged to a complicated man. Doing the ordinary work of coming to terms with someone complicated. The kind of work that doesn't finish. It just continues in smaller and smaller waves. Until one day you realize the waves don't knock you over anymore. They just remind you the water is there. In the study, on his desk, I found one more thing. A sealed envelope. My name on the front. His handwriting. My wife stood beside me as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Luna and me, young, standing outside the university, laughing. I didn't recognize the moment, which meant someone had taken it without our knowing. On the back, in his handwriting. This was the day she told him she loved him for the first time. He didn't say it back immediately. He thought about it for 3 days. She waited. He said it on the 4th day while they were walking. She already knew. She said so. That was when I knew they were right for each other. "I'm sorry it went the way it did, but I want you to know I saw it. I saw what it was. I read it twice. Then I set the photograph on the desk. My wife looked at it. He kept it," she said. "Yes. All this time." "Yes." She looked at me. I looked at the two young people in the photograph. Laughing. Unaware. Standing in sunlight outside a university. Before everything that came after. I picked up the photograph. And I put it in my pocket. My wife watched. She said nothing. We left the study. We walked through the rest of the house. We locked the door when we left. I held the photograph all the way home. Not to mourn what had been. Not to open what was closed. Just to carry it. Just to let it be a true thing from a true time. The way all memories deserve to be kept. As evidence that something real had existed. That evening I put the photograph in a drawer. The one in my study. Where I kept things I looked at rarely but needed to know were there. My wife saw me do it. She didn't say anything. Later, after our daughter was in bed, we sat on the back steps. The night air was cool. The yard was dark except for light from the kitchen window. "Are you still in the middle of it?" she asked. I thought about the question. "No, I think I'm at the edge of it." "What does that look like?" "Like the hard part is over. But the work isn't." "The work?" "Understanding it. Making it fit somewhere reasonable." She leaned her shoulder against mine. "That takes time." "I know. I can be patient." "You've been patient for years." I didn't know what I was being patient with. "And now that you do." She was quiet for a moment. "Now that I do, I think I made the right call." I looked at her. "Being patient," she said. "With all of it. With you figuring out things I couldn't see." She looked at the yard. "You came back to me every time." "Yes. Even when you were far away." "Yes." She looked at me. Her expression was the familiar one. The one that meant she was about to say something true. "So did I," she said. I held those words. She looked at the night. We sat on the steps for a long time, no urgency, just the cool air and the light from the kitchen window and the ordinary, irreplaceable weight of being beside someone you have chosen. Luna's book was republished, 9 months after the investigation began, with a new introduction. She didn't explain the autobiographical elements. She didn't need to. The investigation had done that. But the introduction said one thing clearly. It said, this story was written from memory. Memory that had been suppressed, then recovered, then finally understood. I changed every name. I changed every location. But the heart of it is real. The part about two people who loved each other and were kept apart by someone who loved them both. The part about loss that nobody explains. The part about carrying something so long you forget the original weight. That part is all true. I hope readers who have lived something like it find something useful here. Not comfort necessarily, just recognition. That's usually enough. I set the phone down. My wife had read it too. She's a good writer, she said. She always was. The book is good. Yes. Different from what you expected. Yes. How? I thought about how to explain it. She wrote about grief without making the grieving person small, I said. She wrote it as something that happens to people who were trying their best. My wife absorbed that. Generous. Very. She looked at the phone. Is she happy? I thought about Luna's letter. I'm going to be fine. I already am, mostly. Mostly, I said. My wife nodded. That's enough. Yes, I said. Mostly is enough. And she was right. Mostly was where most people lived. The rest was performance. Chase called once. About a year after everything. I almost didn't answer. But I did. How are you? He asked. Fine, I said. You. Strange. Strange how? Lighter. I understood that. And Luna? I asked. She's working on something new. Another book. She says it's different. Not about the past. Good. She seems, he paused. Present is the right word. I thought about that. That's better than settled. Yes. He was quiet. I wanted to thank you. For what? For not making me an enemy. I thought about the church, the tunnel, the evidence room, the hours in the apartment. You helped us, I said. It would have been difficult to make you an enemy after that. It's been done before. Not by me. A pause. No, he said. Not by you. He was quiet. How is your family? My wife is well. My daughter started a new school year. Is she still interested in geometry? I almost smiled. She's moved on to astronomy. He made a sound that was almost a laugh. Of course she has. Good luck, Chase. You too, Lincoln. I ended the call, sat for a moment, then I got up and went to find my family. A year and a half after the tunnel, Reyes called to tell me the first indictments had been issued. Not everyone, not all at once, but the first wave. 6 names, including the security officer, including one government official protected for 30 years, including a financial intermediary who had handled the payments. My grandfather's name was mentioned in the reports, as a deceased co-architect, not as a defendant, but with full accounting of his role. The notebook helped clarify certain things. His own words, in his own handwriting. There had been debate about whether to use it. I had authorized it. It seemed like the right thing, not to punish him, but because he had written it knowing it might someday be used. He had not been hiding. He had been recording. That was his version of eventual honesty. Reyes said the process would continue. More indictments, more testimony, more slow, careful unraveling. I thanked him. After I ended the call, I sat at my desk for a long time. I thought about the 6 drives, all that information, moving through the world now, being processed, doing what information does when it is finally released. It illuminates, even the parts nobody wanted to look at, even the parts that were painful, even the parts about people you loved. My grandfather had known this. He had decided it was worth it. He had been right. I agreed with him, even though it cost something, even though it would keep costing. Truth usually did. My daughter asked me about him. My grandfather. She had heard his name mentioned. She was old enough to ask. We were walking home from school. The afternoon was ordinary. Did you love him? She asked. Yes. Did he love you? Yes. Even though he made a mistake. I looked at her. She was watching the ground as she walked, thinking. Who told you about the mistake? I asked. Mom. A little bit. You, without meaning to. I said nothing. Also the newspaper. I saw your name. I had known she was sharp. Yes, I said. He loved me even though he made a mistake. And you loved him even though he made a mistake. Yes. Even now. Especially now. She was quiet. That's hard, she said. Yes. But you can do hard things. Usually. She looked up at me. I think he was scared, she said. Of what? Of losing you. I looked at my daughter. 7 years old, walking home from school, drawing stick figures in churches. Yes, I said. He was scared of losing me. And he did the wrong thing because he was scared. Yes. She nodded. People do that. Yes. But you still love them. Yes. She considered this. Okay, she said. She took my hand. We kept walking. I held her hand the whole way home. My wife asked me once, very quietly, do you regret not knowing sooner? We were lying in bed, late, after our daughter was long asleep. I thought about the question. Sometimes, I said, what would you change? I stared at the ceiling. I would have found a way to contact her myself, before I disappeared, gone to find her instead of believing what I was told. Why didn't you? I thought about who I had been, young, trained to trust the people above me. I didn't trust my own judgment over the people who had raised me, I said. My wife was quiet, and now I trust it more. Because of this. Because of everything since. She turned on her side, looking at me. If you had found her, she said. If you hadn't disappeared. I knew where the question was going. I let her ask it. We might have survived it, she said. You and Luna. Maybe. But then everything else would have been different. She was still. I turned to look at her. I don't wish for the other version, I said. She held my gaze. Neither do I. We lay in the quiet. That's not disloyalty to her, I said. I know, she said. It's just what's real. I know, she said again. And we lay in the dark. Exactly where we were. 2 years after the tunnel, Luna gave a rare interview. A single interview. To a literary publication. She said, when you write something true inside a story, you have to commit to it differently. You can't hide behind documentation. You have to decide that the emotional reality is accurate even if the surface details are changed. That's harder than it sounds. Because to do it well, you have to believe in what you felt. Even the parts that still hurt. Especially those. I read the interview twice. My wife had read it. Our daughter found it eventually. She read it at the kitchen table. She said, is this the woman from the phone? My wife said, yes. She nodded. She read the rest quietly. Then she folded the magazine, looked at me. She's a good writer, she said. I thought of my wife saying the same thing. She is, I said. Our daughter looked at the magazine. I want to write stories someday. Then write them. You'll read them. Every one. She seemed satisfied with this arrangement. She pushed the magazine aside. She asked what was for dinner. She moved on, the way children did, with easy grace, carrying things without knowing they were carrying them. In the best possible way. I called Ferris on the 2nd anniversary, not for any specific reason, just because it seemed like the kind of thing worth marking. He answered immediately. You're counting years, he said. Apparently. How is it? Stable. Stable is good. He asked about my family. I told him. He asked about the investigation. You know better than I do, I said. I know the official version. I'm asking about yours. I thought about it. It feels like watching something being cleaned, I said. Slow, incomplete, but moving in the right direction. That's accurate. Will it be fully resolved? He was quiet. Define fully. Will everyone who should be held accountable be held accountable? No, he said honestly. Some will die before it reaches them. Some will negotiate arrangements. Some are too well protected. That's how it works. Does that bother you? He was quiet again. Yes, every time. But you keep doing it. Because the alternative is doing nothing. I thought of my grandfather. The archive. The decision to keep it rather than use it. The decision to finally leave a path. My grandfather had the archive for years, I said. And he didn't release it. He was afraid of what would be lost in the release. Was he right? About some things. But not enough things. No, not enough. I think he knew that, I said. I think he did too, Ferris said. That's why he built the trail. Yes. Take care of your family, Ferris said. Always, I said. 3 years after the tunnel, I met Luna. In person. Once. Arranged through Reyes. Not as a legal meeting. As something adjacent. Informal. A cafe. Quiet corner. She was already there when I arrived. Older than I remembered. but she looked like someone who had arrived somewhere. Not arrived as in finished. Arrived as in landed in a place they recognized. She stood when I walked in. We looked at each other for a moment. Then we sat. The waiter came. We ordered coffee. We didn't speak immediately. Then Luna said, "You look like your grandfather." Everyone says that. It's not a complaint. I almost smiled. "How are you?" I asked. "Present," she said. I thought of what Chase had said. That's a good word. It took work. I imagine. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I'm not going to ask how things are for you." "Why not?" "Because I already know. From Chase. From the way you walked in." I looked at her. "Like someone who knows where they're going," she said. I held those words. "I wanted to see that," she said. "Why?" "Because for a long time I thought I had cost you that." I shook my head. "You didn't." "I know that now." She looked at me seriously, but I needed to see it with my own eyes. We stayed for an hour. We talked about ordinary things. We didn't talk about the past. We had written about it enough. When we left, she shook my hand. Firmly. "Take care," she said. "You too," I said. She walked in one direction. I walked in another. That was enough. I told my wife about the meeting. That evening, after our daughter was asleep. She listened to everything, without interrupting. When I finished, she looked at me. "How did it feel?" "Like something completing." "In what way?" "Like the last page of something." She was quiet. "Was she all right?" "She was present," I said. My wife recognized the word. Chase's word. "Yes." She looked at her hands. "And you?" I was glad I went. Because it was real. It wasn't about what might have been. It was just two people who shared a history, acknowledging it. And then walking in different directions. "Yes." She looked at me steadily. "Did any part of you want something different?" I thought about the question. Seriously. Without reaching for the easy answer. "No," I said. Because what I wanted was to see that she was all right. And she was. She was. My wife nodded. "Then it's good you went," she said. She reached over and turned off the lamp on her side. The room went half dark. She lay down. After a moment I lay down too. The room was quiet. "Lincoln," she said. "Yes. Thank you." "For what?" "For always coming back." I looked at the ceiling. "Always," I said. She was quiet. Then she was asleep. I lay in the dark. And I stayed exactly where I was. For years after the tunnel, I went to my grandfather's grave. Alone. A weekday morning. The cemetery was quiet. I brought nothing. No flowers. No objects. Just myself. I stood beside the stone for a while. I thought about the notebook. The inscription. The trail. The archive. The drives. Two old men who had tried to use information as protection and discovered too late that protection requires more than information. I thought about what I would say to him if I could. I would say, "You were right that I would come back. You were right that Luna would remember. You were wrong to decide for us. But I understand why you did. I don't forgive you because you deserve it. I forgive you because it's the only thing that makes sense. Because you tried. Because you built a trail in the dark in case someone came looking. Because your last notebook entry said that love cannot be undone. And you were right about that. Even after everything. Even when it looked like it had been undone. The love was still there. Under the rubble. Waiting. I looked at the stone for a long moment. Then I said one thing out loud. "You should have told me." I said it quietly. Without anger. Just honestly. The way he had taught me to speak. Then I walked back to my car. Drove home. And went back to my life. My daughter started writing. Not for school. For herself. She filled a notebook over one autumn. One page at a time. She showed it to me at the end. She stood beside my desk while I read the first few pages. It was a story. About a family who goes on an adventure. A tunnel featured prominently. A church with moonlight. A man named Ferris described as serious and kind. There was a woman in the story who appeared briefly. She had a voice that sounded like someone who had been sad for a long time and then decided to stop. I read that line twice. "This is good," I said. Our daughter looked uncertain for the first time in recent memory. "Is it real enough?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "Mom says real stories feel true even if they're not exactly true." I looked at the notebook. "This feels true," I said. She relaxed. "Is it okay to write about the tunnel?" "Yes." Even though it was scary. Especially because it was. She took the notebook back. She held it with both hands. "I gave the woman in the story a happy ending," she said. "I saw. Is that okay?" Even though I don't know if the real ending is happy. I thought about present. About being landed somewhere you recognized. I think the real ending is present, I said. Our daughter thought about that. Is that happy enough? Yes, I said. That's happy enough. My wife read our daughter's notebook. She sat at the kitchen table and read it from front to back. When she finished, she set it down. She sat with it for a moment. Then, she has your instincts for narrative. And yours for observation. My wife looked at the notebook. The woman in the story, she said. Yes. Described as having a voice like someone who decided to stop being sad. I read that. Where did she learn that? I looked at her. From you. She frowned. From me. She heard how you talked about Luna. After I told you about the call. My wife was quiet. I only said. You said she sounded like someone who was going to be all right. My wife was still. She heard that. She hears everything. My wife looked at the notebook. Then at me. I didn't know she was listening. She's always listening. My wife was quiet for a long time. Then very softly, I want her to keep writing. She will. This is important to her. It's already important to her. My wife put her hand on the notebook. Then she picked it up. She stood. She walked to our daughter's room. I heard the door open. My wife's voice, low and certain. I couldn't hear the words, but I heard our daughter's voice answering. Then quiet. Then my wife coming back. She sat across from me. She was still awake. What did you say? I told her it was the best thing I'd read this year. What did she say? My wife smiled. Really smiled. She said she knew. The investigation issued its final public report. 5 years after the tunnel. It was long, dense, full of names and dates and operations. My grandfather's name appeared multiple times. Accurately, honestly, without the softening that sometimes came when powerful men were involved. Luna's grandfather appeared too, also accurately, also honestly, both of them presented as what they were. Men who had operated with significant power and significant secrecy, who had protected some people, damaged others. My name appeared briefly, as a connected party who had cooperated fully, as someone whose grandfather had built the trail to the evidence. I read the relevant sections. Then I called Reyes. It reads fairly, I said. It reads accurately, he said. Same thing. He paused. Not always, but in this case, yes. I looked out the window. Is it finished now? The formal part. And the rest? The rest takes longer. What does the rest look like? He thought for a moment. Like what you're doing, he said. Living with it, understanding it, making it mean something beyond what it cost. I held that. Thank you, Reyes. For what? For being the kind of investigator who cared about the actual answer. He was quiet. Thank you for trusting us with the archive. My grandfather trusted it to me. Yes, he said. He did. I ended the call, sat at my desk, and let the quiet be what it was. My wife and I took a trip, just the two of us. Our daughter stayed with her grandparents on my wife's side. She informed us she would be fine and left without looking back. We took that as permission. 3 days, nothing planned, long walks, good food, the kind of silence that belongs to two people who don't need to fill space. On the second afternoon we sat on a hillside. We could see the city below, small, manageable from that distance. You seem lighter, my wife said. The report. Something finished. Something finished, I agreed. She leaned her head back. The sky was clear. I want to ask you something, she said. Ask. When this all started, when Chase appeared at our door. Yes. Were you afraid? I thought honestly, yes. Of which part? Of what I would find. That it would undo something. That it would force me to look at something I had decided not to look at. She was quiet. And did it? Yes. And I looked at her, and I found that what I had built was more solid than I thought. She held my gaze. Because of us. Because of us, I said. She looked back at the city. Good answer, she said. Not performed, not managed, just true, the way it always was with her. On the last night of the trip, my wife said something I had been thinking about. She said, do you think they would have made it? I knew who she meant. Luna and me. If things had gone differently. I thought about this carefully. She deserved a careful answer. I think we would have tried, I said. But trying isn't the same as making it. She was quiet. What would have been hard? I thought about who I had been, and who Luna had been. Two people trained to carry things alone. We were too similar in the wrong ways, I said. What ways? Both of us had learned to carry things quietly. Neither of us was good at asking for help. That's a problem. It becomes one. She looked at the stars. And us. I looked at her. You asked for what you needed, I said. From the beginning. Was that strange to you? Yes. Did it help? More than I knew how to say at the time. She smiled slightly. I wasn't always patient. No, but you were always honest. That's the same thing eventually. I thought about that. Yes, I said. I think you needed that. I did. She leaned against my shoulder. Luna needed someone who could carry things beside her. Chase is learning that. Is he good at it? He's getting better. She was quiet. That's what matters, she said. Yes, I said. That's what matters. I kept the notebook. 6 years after the tunnel, I read it again. All 41 entries. From the beginning. This time without the weight of new discovery. Just as a document. A record. My grandfather had been thorough in his thinking. And careless in his execution. That was the clearest summary. He had thought through every consequence except the human ones. He had planned for exposure, for discovery, for the archive being found. He had not planned for how much it would cost the 2 people he was protecting. He had not planned because he had decided not to look at that part. I recognized the pattern. I had done it myself. For 8 years, I had decided not to look at the part where Luna might not have chosen to leave. It was easier. Not to look. Not to question. My grandfather had made himself not look at the cost. I had made myself not look at the lie. Different choices. Same mechanism. The human impulse to protect yourself from the things you can't fix. I closed the notebook. Looked at it for a long time. Then I opened the drawer. Put it beside the photograph. The one of Luna and me laughing outside the university. 2 objects. 2 true things. From a past that had been complicated. And was now settled. I closed the drawer. I went downstairs. My wife was making dinner. Our daughter was at the table doing homework. I sat across from her. She looked up. Done, she said. I am. She went back to her work. I looked at them both. This was where I was. This was where I stayed. Our daughter graduated. She had been writing throughout. Every year. Notebooks filled. One long piece she submitted as her senior project. About memory. About things passed down without words. About how children inherit the unfinished business of their parents without knowing what they've received. Her teacher called it remarkable. My wife cried reading it. I read it 3 times. On the day of the ceremony, I sat between my wife and her parents. Our daughter walked across the stage. She looked for us immediately. She found us immediately. She smiled. Not performed. The real one. That night we had dinner at our kitchen table. The 3 of us. Like 100 other dinners. After we ate, our daughter said, I want to go somewhere. Where? My wife asked. I don't know yet. She looked at me. Somewhere with a story. I looked at my wife. My wife looked at me. Then go find one, I said. Our daughter nodded. Like that settled it. She cleared her plate. She kissed my wife. She kissed me. She went to her room. My wife looked at me across the table. She's ready, she said. Yes. Are we? I thought about the last 8 years. The notebook. The archive, the tunnel, the church, and every ordinary day that had come after. Yes, I said. We are. Luna published a second book. It had nothing to do with the past. It was a story about a woman who walks from one end of a country to the other. About what she finds. About what she leaves behind at each step. Reviews called it her best work. I read it. My wife read it. Our daughter read it while traveling somewhere far from home. She sent us a message. It said, she writes like someone who decided the road mattered more than the destination. I want to write like that someday. I showed the message to my wife. She already does, my wife said. I texted our daughter back. You already do. She sent back a single image. A road. Long disappearing into distance. Beautiful in the way ordinary things are beautiful when someone decides to look at them properly. I kept the image. Added it to the drawer. The one with the notebook. The one with the photographs. The one that held the evidence of a life made from complicated things. A life that had continued after the complicated things. My wife came to stand beside me. She looked at the drawer. Then she closed it. Come have tea, she said. I followed her to the kitchen. We had tea. We talked about nothing important. We talked about everything worth saying. The way we always had. And when we were done, we went to bed. In the same home. In the same room. Exactly where we had always been. I thought about the question of forgiveness. Not constantly, but occasionally. The way you return to a question without a single answer. I had forgiven my grandfather. Or something that worked like forgiveness. Something that let me carry what he had done without being crushed by it. I had forgiven the system that had separated me from Luna. Not because it deserved it. Because holding it was exhausting. I had not forgiven every part of it. Some things still felt wrong. Some things would always feel wrong. Luna and I had lost 8 years. That could not be undone. Her grandfather had died before the truth came out. That could not be changed. My grandfather had died carrying a secret he should have told. That could not be reversed. But alongside all the things that could not be changed, something else had happened. My wife had said yes. Our daughter had been born. Luna had written her books. Chase had become someone worth being. Reyes had done his work carefully. Ferris had picked up a phone at 3 a.m. All of that had also happened. In the same life. In the same story. I thought about what my grandfather had written. Love cannot be undone. He had been thinking of Luna and me when he wrote that. But it was true more broadly. Love that showed up. Love that stayed. Love that said together without hesitation. That could not be undone either. That was also permanent. Also real. And I had it. Right here. In this house. In this life. That was the honest ending. There was one more thing. A year after Luna's second book was published. A decade after the tunnel. An envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Luna standing at the edge of a long road. Facing away from the camera. Arms at her sides. Relaxed. The road stretched forward. The light was good. On the back, in her handwriting. Still walking. Still writing. Still present. No signature. No date. Just those 3 lines. I sat with it for a long time. My wife found me at the kitchen table. She sat across from me. I showed her the photograph. She looked at it. She turned it over. She read the back. She set it down. Still present, she said. Yes. That's enough. Yes. She looked at the photograph. She's all right, my wife said. She is. My wife looked at me. Her expression was the steady one. The one I knew better than my own reflection. And you, she said. I looked at the photograph. At the woman on the road. Facing forward. Then I put it down. I looked at my wife. I'm here, I said. She nodded. Simple. Complete. Yes, she said. You are. The drawer in my study had grown. The photograph of Luna and me laughing. The photograph of Luna on the road. My grandfather's notebook. Luna's last letter. A drawing our daughter had made when she was 7. 4 stick figures. 3 together. 1 beside. A message from Ferris, brief, saying only, you did the right thing. And 1 more object. A key. The one Chase had placed in my hand in the tunnel. The key to the house my grandfather had built. I had kept it. I didn't know exactly why. Maybe because it was the moment everything had changed. Maybe because it was the moment I had understood that the past was not a wall. It was a door. The key had opened a door I had not known existed. Behind that door was a room full of evidence. Of truth. Of careful, costly love. Of a man who had done something wrong for reasons that were not entirely wrong. Of a woman who had sent hundreds of messages into silence. Of 2 people who had lost 8 years. Of 2 people who had found different lives. And been changed by both. I kept the key because it reminded me that locked things could be opened. And that sometimes the person who locked them had left the key on purpose. That was its own kind of hope. My grandfather had left the key in my hand. And trusted I would know what to do. He had been right. Eventually. Most people are. Eventually. My wife took up ceramics. She had said one day that she wanted to work with something real. Something she could hold. Something that took time. She found a course. Tuesday mornings. She became good at it. Slowly. With the patience she brought to everything. Our daughter, home for a visit, held a bowl my wife had made. It's slightly uneven, she said. I know, my wife said. Is that on purpose? The second time it was. Our daughter set the bowl down. I like it. Why? Because it looks like someone made it. My wife looked at the bowl. That's the idea. Our daughter stayed for a week. She had been places. She was the same person and also different. The way travel changes people while leaving the essential part intact. She and I walked one evening. The same neighborhood. Are you happy? She asked. Yes. Genuinely. Genuinely. She was quiet. How do you know the difference? Between genuine and not. Yes. Because genuine doesn't need convincing, I said. She walked beside me. Like the bowl, she said. Like the bowl. She was quiet. I'm glad you two are okay. So are we. I mean really okay, not managing okay. I looked at her. Really okay, I said. She believed me. She was right to. I meant it completely. On a quiet evening, long after the system had closed and our daughter had grown, Ningbing. No, wrong story. On a quiet evening, long after the investigation was finished and our daughter was grown and Luna was walking her roads and writing her books and Chase had become someone worth being, my wife sat in the garden. I sat beside her. The evening was ordinary. She said, if you had to explain to someone what these years meant, what would you say? I thought about it. That the past is real, I said. And the present is also real. And neither one cancels the other. She was quiet. I used to think the past and the present competed, I said. That if one was true, the other was less true. And now I think they're just both true, simultaneously, without competition. She looked at the garden. My grandfather loved me, I said. He made terrible choices. Both are true. Luna loved you, she said. Yes. And that ended. Both are true. And this is true, I said. The most true, because it's still here. She looked at me. Still here, she said. Still here, I agreed. She reached over and took my hand. Not urgently, just firmly, the way she always had. We sat in the garden until it was dark. Then we went inside, together. The way we always did. 11 years after the tunnel, I stood in the kitchen on an ordinary morning. Coffee, light through the window. My wife in the other room. I could hear her moving. A drawer opening. Her voice from the hallway. Have you seen my keys? Counter, I said. I looked. Under the newspaper. A pause. Found them. She came into the kitchen and poured coffee. We stood at the window together. She said, do you remember what you were thinking 11 years ago today? Approximately. What? I thought back. The tunnel. The church. The cold air. The inscription. The drives. The call from Luna. My wife holding our daughter's hand in the dark. I was thinking that the past I had buried was not as buried as I thought, I said. And now. I looked at the street. At the ordinary morning doing its ordinary thing. Now I think the past is exactly where it should be, I said. Where is that? Behind me, I said. Not gone. No, not gone. Just behind. Yes. She sipped her coffee, was quiet for a moment. Then, that's the right place for it. I put my arm around her. She leaned against me, just briefly, the way she always did, before straightening up, before continuing the day. Yes, I said. The morning continued. The street went about its business. We drank our coffee, and the day began. In the end, here is what was true. My grandfather had loved me. He had made terrible decisions in the name of that love. He had also built a trail in the dark, trusting me to follow it. Luna had loved me. She had sent hundreds of messages into silence. She had believed in a truth no one confirmed. She had found her own way forward. And she was present. I had loved Luna. And I had disappeared without fighting for the truth. And I had built a life from what remained. And what remained had been real. All of it. The tunnel. The church. The drives. The notebook. The inscription. The long investigation. All of it real. And what came after was also real. My wife in the kitchen on an ordinary morning. Her hands around a coffee cup she had not made herself. The sound of a drawer opening. Familiar sounds. The sound of a life built from all the things that had happened. And the things that had not. I thought about the last entry in my grandfather's notebook. Love cannot be undone. He had been right. Every version of it was still there. Luna's messages into silence. My wife's hand in the tunnel. My grandfather's inscription. My daughter's drawing. 4 stick figures. 3 together. 1 beside. All of them real. All of them permanent. All of them part of the same true story. A story I had not expected. A story I would not change. This one. Mine. Ours. Here.